Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right, this is the beginning of head coach rankings week. So every day this week, we'll go over a different Power 5 conference and rank all of the coaches. If you haven't already, be sure you're subscribed. These episodes are going to be available both on YouTube and in every podcast app. So we'd really appreciate you subscribing in both venues. Let us know if you are watching on YouTube. Let us know in the comments below your thoughts on our rankings. Give it a thumbs up if you like the video. But let's get right into it. Ryan, who is the worst coach here in the ACC?
Yeah. All right. Well, we were all in agreement here on this one at number 14, Dino Babers of Syracuse. Just really when you look at him, it's just one random good year. That's just looking like a complete outlier there at Syracuse. Otherwise, it's just been miserable. Last year, I mean, they were. It was probably as bad as it's been. They were abysmal, especially offensively. One of the worst in FBS. They were in the 120s as far as SP plus offense. So defense wasn't much better. That was still in the triple digits. Wouldn't be surprised if they only won a couple games this year, maybe a few. Nothing's going real well right now. There's no real positive momentum you can point to for Babers. It seems like his time is running out fast there.
Yeah, I was surprised he didn't get fired after this past year, so very well could come if he doesn't turn it around this year.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, moving on. Our number 13 is David Cutcliffe of Duke. And we all agreed here. And me personally, I've always been a huge Cutcliffe guy, and I think out of all the conferences, he might be the one I dropped the most compared to last year, or at least in years past. I don't doubt his X's and O's are still high on the charts, but overall running the program, it feels like it's gone south and a little bit stale. Of course, we know it's extremely difficult to win at a place like Duke, and he's done wonders there in his tenure. But recently, losing records in 3 of 5 years, including 2-9 last year with an offense, which is his domain, that was statistically near the bottom in the country. So it was hard to rank him any higher at this point.
Yeah. Based on everything he's done, he'd be a top 5 coach in the conference. But just right now, I guess we're taking the position that his run might be over. Moving on to number 12 on our list, it is Geoff Collins of Georgia Tech. And here, I feel like we take a pretty big jump on the list in terms of upside. Like moving forward, Geoff Collins has potentially huge upside. So it doesn't mean putting him 12th that we think he sucks. It's just kind of, there's a lot of, I guess, more proven coaches ahead of him. But yeah, he's a great recruiter. It's just on the field so far at Georgia Tech, he hasn't proven anything. Now, that's kind of to be expected. It's such a huge transition, taking over from Paul Johnson and completely revolutionizing the offense or modernizing the offense. So, and they did improve this past year, which is nice. But I guess I just need to see more. The potential's there, but it just hasn't yet shown up on the field.
Yeah. This will be an important year for him. Year number 3, Jeff Sims coming back, sophomore year. We'll see. They should be able to make a little bit of a jump. All right, we'll move on here to number 11. We have Pat Narduzzi from Pittsburgh. This one we had a little bit of discrepancy as far as the bros here. You guys must have had him pretty low because I had him at 7. And this is kind of the thing that the common theme here with these ACC coaches. When you go through, seems like 4 through like 11 or so. Yeah, it is so just close. You're really hard splitting these guys. So. I probably don't think Trey and Michael think Pat Narduzzi's a bad coach. They just think like, hey, it's just so close, so they had to put somebody there. But I had him at 7. He's been bowl eligible 5 out of 6 years, 29-20 in ACC play. The only thing for him, he just hasn't had a breakout year. He's had good solid years, but just not one that's like, hey, you could win 9-10 games. Recruiting's fine. Everything's going well. It's just he hasn't been able to take that big leap. So that's why I have him middle of the pack, but still think he's done a solid job there.
Yeah, it hasn't been awful. And like you said, Ryan, I totally agree with what you said. It's razor thin amongst this kind of middle group of coaches in the ACC. It was very difficult for me. And maybe I have been unfairly critical of Narduzzi. His defenses recently have improved, and overall the team has been a little bit more balanced than what it had been. But when I look overall at his tenure, it's just he's been there 6 years. He's only won one bowl game, and that was the Quick Lane Bowl versus Eastern Michigan. He's lost 3 others, and none of the other bowl games were really marquee games. He's just been very average. It's not the easiest place to win, but after 6 years, it just kind of seems like he's hit a ceiling. I don't know if he can break through at this point.
Yeah, we'll see. His latest recruiting class was good, so hopefully if that lives up to the billing, then maybe they can kind of break through. But yeah, he's just been above average, or average to above average, I would say.
Yeah, I'm not anti him at all, though. Okay, let's move on to number 10, Mike Norvell of Florida State. And Norvell, he is really difficult to grade, in my opinion. Him just in general, because I've always had a tough time judging him because when he was at Memphis, because he was the guy after the guy when he followed Fuente. And he still had a great run at Memphis, of course. And even though he was a hot hire going into Florida State, he had very little ties to the ACC and Florida State in particular. And it's really tough to gauge after 1 year, because even though it was an ugly 3-6, they had major COVID disruptions last year. They were installing a new system with of course no off season, and especially this was to a team that had been dealing with different coordinators pretty much every year, it seems like. So yeah, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't think he's a bad coach, but he'll have to show something here.
Yeah, I was the lowest, I guess, here on Mike Norvell. They just massively disappointed last year. I know there's excuses built in. There is, but their win total was over like 8 or something like that last year. I know they had a shortened season and stuff, but it was
bullish on them.
They massively disappointed. And like Trey said, I mean, the whole Memphis thing, it's hard to give them a ton of credit for that. And the recruiting at Florida State, we've seen them in top 10, top 5, type of classes. He's not getting there yet. 2022 is off to a solid start, so maybe that'll be the type of class that can do it. But I mean, that's a little bit of ways away as far as when those kids are going to be able to play for you. Like this year they ain't coming. The next year they're going to be true freshmen. So it's, it could have a few bad years before those kids start making an impact. And we'll see with Mackenzie Milton coming in this year. That might be a big boost. But I have my doubts about him. It's I have a hard time. There's just no real super positive things I can point to right now for him.
I gave him a bit of more of a break, I think, for year one than you did because of obviously COVID. It was a very rough time to be putting in a whole new coaching staff. And recruiting wise, it was tough to recruit because he's going to a new school. He hasn't built that relationship. Recruiting is, at least a 2-year kind of process. And so he's having to build these relationships without them being able to come onto campus. So I think that kind of held them back in terms of recruiting. And I think 2022, the class will be much better, and hopefully things will, start to trend more positive. But let's go to number 9 on our list. It is Dave Doeren of NC State. And he had a down 2019 going 4-8. But that was after they had lost a ton of production, so a little bit excusable, and just, bounced back in 2020 and had a very good year. It's been 7, 8, 9 wins pretty much every year for him. And he also did a very good job at Northern Illinois before getting to NC State. So I see him like kind of like Pat Narduzzi, maybe just slightly better. We've seen a little bit more upside with him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like we said before, this middle group, I could have scrambled them all and been fine with the order, but Doeren just so happened to be kind of at the bottom of the way it shook out. 2020, like you said, was great after the abysmal year, but I personally think highly of NC State, the program, and I think it could be even a little bit better than it is. And the thing that kind of brings me back, why I maybe dropped him a couple pegs, was a couple years ago when they had that awesome D-line coming back. They underachieved, and in his 8 years, they've only finished ranked one time, and it was 23rd. Not saying it's super easy to win there, but I just want maybe a little bit more. That would be why I would put him a little higher.
Yep. Fair enough. All right, let's move on to number 8 on our list. We got Geoff Hafley from Boston College. He did a good job his first year, no doubt about it. He went 6-5. They opted out of a bowl game. They are recruiting way better than they did before. They were in the 60s and 70s as far as recruiting for a little while there, and he got up to 37th this past year coming in. So kind of in line with all those other ACC schools that we're kind of talking about here. Louisville, maybe Virginia, NC State. So really competitive there. Phil Dracovic had a good first year there. What a big get that was, obviously. A huge upgrade. Technically, he has 3 years left, so I'm not sure if he'll use all those 3 years, but they've still got some time left there. So nice QB to build around. Defense got better under Hafley there. So, things are looking better. Things are looking ahead. I think he'll probably do better than Adazio. I would have to say that at this point, you're happy you got rid of Adazio and obviously replaced him with Hafley after year one.
Yeah, I was a little bit lower on Hafley. I think this is maybe jumping the gun a little bit to have him ahead of a guy like Dave Doeren. Like, it was a solid year one, yes, but I mean, they'd been winning 7 games pretty much every year under Adazio, so it's not like 6-5 was anything crazy.
Right.
So yeah, I would have him a couple slots lower, but still, if I was a Boston College fan, I would be, excited and hopeful about the future.
The way I looked at it,
more upside though.
That's
for sure has more upside than Adazio.
The way I looked at it was like last year, I didn't know what to do with him. I think we kind of put him in the bottom just because he hadn't been a head coach really, and so we didn't really know. And BC wasn't. I just happened to watch a decent amount of BC games this year, and I came away impressed. I mean, they lost a close game to number 12 North Carolina, and then they nearly upset Clemson on the road. They just played with a little bit different passion this year, and that's why I kind of boosted them this year. All right, moving on to a very polarizing coach in most of these ACC rankings, and probably even amongst the bros here. Number 7, Justin Fuente of Virginia Tech. Now, I don't doubt that Fuente can still coach a great offense, but as a CEO in recent years, it's been somewhat of a struggle. Losing seasons in 2 of the last 3 years, they're not familiar with that in Blacksburg, and it's been documented often about how they've had lots of transfers out of the program. He's flirted with other jobs, and Hokie fans have expressed dismay, and he's squarely on the hot seat going into this year. And he just hasn't been able to get even on the defensive side, the team has really taken a step back. So that being said, he's one of those guys that would still be sought after if he did leave Virginia Tech. But as far as right now, he's on a shaky seat.
Yeah, I was by far the highest on Justin Fuente. I had him at 4, and because I'm trying to grade these coaches in a vacuum, not necessarily just how they're doing at their job right now, but just in general. If I kind of took them and plopped them at a random job, how I think they'd do, and I think he would do well. It starts, back at Memphis. When he took over Memphis, they were 117th out of 120 teams in SP+. So they had been terrible for a few years before he got there. He turned them into one of the best programs in the G5. And then at Virginia Tech, they'd kind of fallen off under Frank Beamer. They were winning, 7 games every year for several years running. He took over immediately. They were significantly better, 10-4, 9-4, 2 top 25 finishes. Recruiting was actually had taken a jump up as well the first few years. And like you said, though, it's been bad the last 3 years. I think it might have started. Well, I think before the 2018 season, they had a bunch of transfers and injuries, which was odd. And he flirted, a couple years ago with the Baylor job. So there's been some. It seems like it's just kind of maybe not a fit anymore. For whatever reason, he's rubbed the fans the wrong way, and maybe the administration, and maybe it's not a fit in Virginia. But I still think he's a good coach.
All right. Well, you did your best there, Mike.
And I mean, even looking at like the last 3 years where it's kind of been bad, they're still 14-12 in ACC play. Like, it's not great, but I don't think it erases all the great stuff he did, in the several years before.
Yeah, it just seems like it's going the wrong way.
Yeah,
it does. It does. I kind of want him to just get fired and just start somewhere fresh.
Yeah. Start anew. Yeah. All right. So I think this is a good time to take a look at our sponsor, My Front Page Story. So if you use the promo code BROS15, you can get one of the best gifts out there as Mother's Day approaches. And honestly, it's one of the best Mother's Day gifts out there. So what it is you talk to a professional writer about your mom in this case, for 10 to 15 minutes. And myfrontpagestory.com, their writer will write an awesome story about her, and it ends up looking like it would on the front page of a newspaper. So if you're looking to do something special or unique this year, this is the time. And it's a fun keepsake that mom will have forever, almost guaranteed to draw emotion from mom when giving it to her. The bottom line, your mom will be happy and you'll win. So it's myfrontpagestory.com. You use the promo code BROS15 for 15% off. That's myfrontpagestory.com, promo code BROS15.
All right, so let's move on to number 6 on our list, Manny Diaz from Miami. And he took a big jump because after year 1 last year, when they didn't have a good start, he was 13th in our rankings, and no one really had a problem with it. Like, I don't think we didn't hear from many Miami fans complaining about that. But the addition of D'Eriq King and Rhett Lashley as offensive coordinator helped them to go 8-3. So you definitely feel way better. And he's recruiting, well, so that helps. I was by far the lowest on him at 9th, though. And like we've been saying the whole time, the theme is like he's 9th, but it's razor thin to where I could have him, 4th or 5th. But I guess I just want to see more than one solid year. They were 20th in SP Plus last year. They had some good luck in close games, got blown out in a couple. And maybe I'm just thinking about the fact that Mark Richt got off to an even better start than Manny Diaz, and you saw what ended up happening. So I acknowledge that he's got the upside to be in the top 3, but I guess I just want to see another good year. And they're supposed to be good this year, so maybe it's inevitable he'll rise.
Yeah, I could, I don't look at your ranking of him and say, oh, you're crazy. I think it's, reasonable. I had him personally at 4th. I think I'm maybe factoring in a little more of upside maybe in my rankings here. And he obviously is recruiting well, and he's going to have a great defense. He always has a good D. So, and hey, hopefully D'Eriq King comes back healthy. So that would really help his cause this year. But let's move on here to number 5. We got Scott Satterfield from Louisville. Some folks might be a little surprised after the year that they had this year that we have him at 5th. And I think maybe last year we had him at number 3. I can't remember exactly where we had him, but we had him pretty high.
He was probably 3 or 4. He was pretty highly thought of, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I tried not to overreact too much to this past year. They probably should have been better, yes. But keep in mind the year before they went 8-5, but that year they completely maxed out. That was the most wins they could have got out of that schedule. That really wasn't that great of a team. And then this year, and they won some close games. This year was just like the opposite. They were 0-4 in 1-score games this year. So they really were pretty comparable teams these past 2 years. One team just had a little more luck than the other. So the recruiting is okay. They're right in the middle of that pack there in the ACC. But I just think that program is in a steadier place than maybe some folks are thinking outside of it. So Satterfield's a good coach. He proved it at App State for quite a while. I think he's a good coach still. I trust that he'll kind of keep that program afloat, and I think they'll have a kind of a bounce back year this coming year.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't forget how to coach, and like you said, they were ahead of schedule a couple years ago, and yeah, okay, they fell flat last year, but they're a team that I might buy low going into this season.
Yeah. To kind of play devil's advocate here, even though I had him, maybe I didn't have him quite 5th, but I had him fairly high, is this does have the potential to turn into a kind of Justin Fuente situation, because this past offseason, he flirted with the South Carolina job. The fans didn't like that. He didn't handle it well in the media. So of course they weren't happy with the way they played on the field this season. So there's some ill will there. He needs to turn it around fast before things kind of sour. Yeah. But like I said, App State, amazing job there, and took over a dumpster fire at Louisville. So I think so far he's done okay.
Yep. All right, moving on to number 4, Bronco Mendenhall of Virginia. And in my opinion, he's pretty tough to assess because, we all know he did an incredible job at BYU for over 10 years, and then gradually has built Virginia into a better team. They won a bowl game a couple years ago. Somehow he got them to the Orange Bowl the following year. But then you have to wonder if they hit their ceiling under him. They're not expected to do a whole lot this upcoming year, but he's going to kind of need to finish this year with some promise. Otherwise, he'll certainly be, I would imagine, much lower on our list next year.
Yeah, he was definitely a tough one to rank, but the reason I have him ranked pretty high is Virginia had been really struggling. They'd made one bowl game the previous 7 years before he got there. So just to have them, very confident so soon is pretty good. But I will say he's fourth on our list. He's probably closer to ninth than he is to like second, because there's a pretty big jump once we get to that top two coming up.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. But first we got to get to number 3, Dave Clawson from Wake Forest. You guys both had him third. I had him just a little bit lower at 5th. So I guess I'll present the negative side here, even though it's hard to do. There's not much negative you can say about him. I will say, not that Wake Forest was very good when he took over, but they did get worse the first couple years he was there. They were 2-14 in the ACC, so it took a while, just like it did at Bowling Green. Like, you don't see, at least the last 2 stints, you don't see immediate improvement. If anything, they get a little worse before things get better.
Building it up the right way.
What's that?
He's building it up the right way.
Yeah, he's tearing it down and building it back up. Maybe that's what he's doing. But yeah, since that 2-14 start, they are now 17-18 in ACC play, which doesn't sound good, but at Wake, that's very good. So
that's very good.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with him at third.
I just don't think the casual fan is aware of how good Clawson is in general. Going to 5 straight bowl games at Wake is really an incredible feat, considering they'd only been to 10 in their entire history before that. He manages to get the most out of his guys, and I hear what you're saying, Mike. I mean, I'm not saying he's the second coming of Bill Belichick, but he usually has a productive team, productive offense, and even will sneak in some quality defensive players.
Yep. I'm with you, Trey.
I will say, if the recruiting had kind of ticked up at some point, I would be more likely to put him third. But it's that recruiting level that he's at is just, it gives you a ceiling, for the most part.
That's true.
Yeah, it does. But again, we're talking relative as far as we're trying to put these guys in a vacuum, right, Michael?
True.
Maybe if he was at North Carolina, that recruiting ceiling wouldn't be there quite as much. So, for what he's given, he's doing a fantastic job. All right, we're going to number 2 here. We got Mack Brown from North Carolina. Ooh, boy, he's risen up the ranks here quickly. Done a great job. 15-10 at North Carolina, 11-7 in ACC play. Made it to the Orange Bowl. Obviously, they had a really good team this past year. I mean, the recruiting is great. 14th class this year after the 13th ranked last year. Sam Howell's got another year left, maybe 2 if he decides. Just clearly elevating themselves above kind of that middle tier of the ACC. They were kind of in that pack with the Louisvilles and the Virginias and all those types of teams. Pitts, they're not there anymore. They're above them with the way Mack Brown's done it. So he's a clear number 2 in my eyes.
Yeah, I think we've just took a big jump up here. The recruiting and on the field have both been amazing, so far. So I don't think anyone would disagree with his ranking here.
Yep.
No, and I got to be honest, he's actually done more than I thought he would. I think any Carolina fan would look and say this is the best possible start you could have had through 2 years. It's pretty awesome to see. All right.
Yep.
Moving on to the obvious number 1, Dabo Swinney of Clemson. I mean, obviously he's one of the easiest to rank in all of the conferences. You could read a litany of different stats on how good Clemson has been under him, but you know all of him. The fact, though, that he's turned Clemson into a household name where you rattle off Clemson along the likes of Alabama and Ohio State every year, it just shows why he's obviously number 1 in our rankings and near the top at the overall country.
Yeah, there's nothing I can really add here. It's weird that the most popular guys on these lists, when we get to the SEC, Nick Saban, and when you're talking about Lincoln Riley in the Big 12, like you don't really need to say anything. It's just like, yep.
It is what it is.
Everybody knows.
Okay, well, let's put up the final list here of all the coaches. And Ryan, what are your thoughts just kind of overall looking at the ACC head coach list?
We've hinted at this, but it was just the hardest conference to rank as far as coaches for me. I was like, I don't know what to do with Bronco, Mendenhall. I'm just going to put him here. I sometimes I had no real good reason. I was like, I got to pick somebody. I'll pick him. Like, it was too hard. This one was tough. We'll get to some easier conferences, but maybe next year it'll be a little easier in this conference. I don't know.
Yeah. No, we've kind of said it the whole episode, but I would just, if you're letting us know in the comments below, hey, you can call us idiots or give us your thoughts, but just know that just because we had Pat Narduzzi 11th and Scott Satterfield 5th doesn't mean I think there's some massive gap between the two. Not at all. It's just like it's so close.
Neck and neck.
Yeah, I'm exactly with you guys. I echo your sentiments. It was difficult.
Alrighty, well, we've still got 4 more conferences to go, so thanks for watching this one. We'd really appreciate, or listening if you're listening in a podcast app. We'd really appreciate the YouTube viewers though to give our video a thumbs up, leave a comment. Like we've said a few times, we're hoping to grow the show this week, putting out a lot of episodes. So would appreciate your support. So thank you for doing that, and we'll see you tomorrow.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.